Supposedly, we're in fall. When I think of fall, I think of apples. So we're gonna make apple snickerdoodle cookies. Hey, it's Scott. Welcome to my channel, Sam Marcus Makes. So I recently had the party tray of cookies. There was a cookie that I didn't necessarily recognize. I thought it was this white chocolate macadamian, but when I tried it, I was blown away because it was an apple cookie. Never really had an apple cookie. I wanted to take that and put a different spin on it because I knew I could make it better. So I'm gonna take an apple cookie and a snickerdoodle and mix it up. So very soft, chewy cookie with a cinnamon sugar on top, but using apples. I want that apple flavor. Let's see how we're gonna do this. So one thing you need to think about when you're doing this is what apple you're gonna use. So I'm gonna use a Honeycrisp apple. You need to think about an apple, not whether you want it sweet, whether you want it sour, but something that can hold up to cooking it. So baking apple. Now Honeycrisp is where you wanna go if you wanna go sweet. Pretty readily available at most grocery stores. If you want something a little more on the sour, I would go with like a Granny Smith. Now I will link down at the bottom. Bon Appetit did a really good article of, I believe it was 6 apples that are best for baking. I'll put that down in the description. So if you want to look for other apples, but if you want sweet, Honeycrisp. If you want more of the tart, you're going Granny Smith. Both apples are very easy to get your hands on. So we're gonna first prep all the ingredients, and we're also gonna prep these apples. So right off the bat, don't forget to soften your butter. We are gonna need about 1.5 sticks of butter. Now, if you forgot to soften it, the quickest way to soften butter is just to get it into smaller pieces. So that's what I'm gonna do here. You can make little cubes, but just basically 1.5 cups. We're gonna end up creaming this. So if you forgot to set it out, make some small pieces. Don't throw it in the microwave, it's gonna get too soft. But just make small pieces, let it decide, get all your other ingredients ready. By the time you come back to cream this, it'll be good to go. So to prep the apple, many different ways to do it. Actually on a quarter, so I'm gonna use a quarter, but you could easily, just use a normal knife. Quarter is nice to have, but definitely not necessary. Never used one. You just push it all the way in, turn it just a little bit, pull it straight out, and you get a nice cord. So this works really well if you're doing a lot of apples. It's something that I don't use very often, but it works good. I peel always after I core. It's easier to hold on to a non-peeled apple. You also want to make sure you peel it however you want to peel, whether you go this way. So we'll get these cleaned up, and then we're gonna dice them to small pieces. So once your butter has softened so that you can cream it, you can definitely do this by hand, but I got to pull out the KitchenAid. So I'm gonna go on low speed just to start, and I want to add my sugar. So we're gonna go with 1/4 cup of white granulated sugar and 3/4 cup of brown sugar. And we're gonna let this go for probably 3 or 4 minutes. We want it good and cream. We'll show you what the finished product looks like. Every once in a while you may have to scrape down the edges, especially if your butter's still a little bit cold. So after you've got it well incorporated and creamed, if you don't know cream, that's what it looks like. It should look very light, very incorporated. So we're gonna add 1 egg to this mixture. And we're also gonna add a tablespoon of vanilla. Same thing, get this mixed up, well incorporated with the egg. So we need to get our dry ingredients now. So in a large mixing bowl, just 2 cups of flour. Next, we're gonna add some instant pudding. This is gonna make this really moist. Vanilla pudding is what you're after. You could definitely experiment with some other ones. Now this is not made up. It is just the mix. It's gonna give it a really creamy texture. You wanna definitely add that. Next, we wanna add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. We wanna add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. We wanna add a pinch of nutmeg. And we also wanna add a pinch of kosher salt. And we're just gonna mix this up so it's combined. So what you'll notice is definitely coming off the sides. It's perfect, that's what we're wanting. We wanna add about a cup of apples. Now, if you did your apples a little bit a while back, you'll start noticing them a little brown. Honestly, that's not gonna be a big deal because we're gonna be cooking them. But if that bothers you, a little lemon juice will stop that. So we're gonna put in about a cup of apples, all depending on the size of your apple, how many you need. For me, it was 1 apple. If you have small apples, it may take 2. Complete optional step would also to be add a cup of white chocolate. Probably even use dark chocolate, can be good, but wanted to try some white chocolate in this one. So just mix these up. It's gonna get a little bit harder to mix up, so you may have to do a little bit by hand, but get it all well combined. Next step, you've got a couple options. So, in my opinion, cookie dough needs to be chilled, but it all depends on how you want it. If you want a cookie that is nice and chewy, that has a little bit of a rise, you want to refrigerate this. So that's what I'm gonna do. You can either refrigerate it like this, or you can go ahead and make your cookies and refrigerate them. Whatever you wanna do. I like this because it's easier to scoop right now. If you throw it in the refrigerator, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be harder to scoop. Now, if you want a crispy cookie, you could cook them just like this, but realize it's gonna be a crispy cookie and kind of flattened. So don't come to me complaining that you got thin, crispy cookies and you wanted thick, fluffy ones. If you want that, you gotta get that butter nice and cold, so it'll rise. So we're gonna dish these out. I'll show you what right size is gonna look like. So I'm using a cookie scoop, and for me, this is about the right size. I'm gonna go just like that. This will probably make in the ballpark of about 20 to 24 cookies. Our last one. This being a Snickerdoodle cookie, we still want to make that outer coating. So we're just gonna make a simple cinnamon sugar. Many ways to do this. Ratios, however much you wanna make. But remember, you're gonna be putting it in raw cookie dough. So for safety reasons, after you use it, you gotta get rid of it. I'm using about a 4-to-1 ratio, 3-to-1 ratio, whatever you wanna think of it as, all depending if you want more cinnamon, less cinnamon. I did 1/3 of a cup of sugar to a tablespoon of cinnamon, because I like mine to be a little more cinnamon. So after your cookies have chilled, firmed up a little bit, we want to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Now, you want to kind of spread these out. For me, it's going to take 2 batches. While the other one's cooking, I left the other ones in the refrigerator. Now you're going to take each cookie and just like you would a Snickerdoodle, roll it in the cinnamon mixture. Each cookie, you want to make sure plenty of the cinnamon sugar. This is the Snickerdoodle part. After you got all of them individually done, equally spread apart, we're gonna bake these. Remember, 350 degree oven. We're gonna go about 10 to 12 minutes. When they're done baking, we want them to completely come to room temperature. So put them on a cooling rack, let them come up to room temperature before you eat them. The cookies have now had a chance to cool down. What I'm really after, when you think of apple, you think of that fall like temperatures. I'm in Texas. We're not even close to those temperatures, but maybe this will get us to that point. All right, let's see. It's apple snickerdoodle. Yeah, so immediately you get that white chocolate. You get the snickerdoodle taste, that texture of a snickerdoodle, that cinnamon, and the softness of the apple really adds a really nice texture, a lot of flavor. And this is the perfect cookie for the fall. Yeah. This whole plate may have to be eaten. Well, hope you enjoyed this video. Please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's grow this channel. But please always remember, beans never goes in chili. Okra, it don't go in gumbo. But it is perfectly fine to put pineapple on pizza. Cheers.